How's it going, everyone? I'm Ken from Pixelated Thoughts, and let's talk about Neon Inferno, a new run-and-gun 2D shooter from developer Zenovia Interactive. They provided a key before the game's official release, and this one really surprised me with its quality. It reminded me of Contra mixed with Gunstar Heroes. It is fast and frantic, and if you happen to play this on hard difficulty or arcade, bring a friend because the game is substantially more difficult. Enemies are far more aggressive, there are more elite enemies that plague the screen, and it feels like the overall pace of the game just picks up. There were times when I felt like it was playing through a bullet hell, the game can feel relentless, but it's also a lot of fun. The footage you're seeing is from my first run, which was on medium difficulty. This was so I could acclimate to the controls and complete the story. You play as either Angelo Morano or Mariana Viti. They are mob enforcers who work for Don Venatori as you complete different missions in a dystopian future set in New York City. Gameplay is straightforward. You are running and shooting, transitioning from shooting those enemies that are directly in front of you or behind you, or those that appear in the background or foreground. You can parry certain projectiles with your melee ability. If you hold down the parry button, you will enter bullet time, which will allow you to control where you can deflect your attack. This is really good for doing high damage to elite enemies or bosses, and is a requirement for success on higher difficulties. The game is very lenient with its parry window, and that leniency extends to the dodge as well, so you don't have to be perfect. Don't panic. You will, however, need to be quick in your transitions from attacking enemies in front of you and those in the background or foreground, or you will be overwhelmed. As I stated before, enemies found in Neon Inferno are relentless, and elite enemies that appear in the background tend to fire off attacks that cannot be parried and have a large area of effect. It's far easier to deal with all the enemies if you remove those lurking around the background. You just need to pick your spots carefully or it's game over. In terms of mission length, I would say on medium, they would run around 20 minutes a piece. You have a higher health pool and more checkpoints on lower difficulties. There are fewer elite enemies, and you really have a lot of wiggle room for mistakes. On hard or arcade, you might see 1 or 2 checkpoints total, but you'll pretty much have to make it through some stages perfectly because you're going to want to have all of your health ready for those boss fights that are found at the end of the stage. Boss fights in Neon Inferno are really good, and each of these bosses have multiple phases and different patterns that you're going to have to perfect so that you can survive. I don't think any of them were unfair, and overall, I enjoyed the challenge. I do think a boss rush mode would do wonders in this game, because even though I did enjoy making my way through the different stages because they are multifaceted and have different phases to them, I really enjoy the boss fights a lot, and I think a dedicated mode to help perfect those fights would be appreciated. Now, I constantly bring up being perfect because you are rewarded based on your performance. You receive a rank at the end of each mission, and you are judged based on if you are able to clear every enemy on stage, if you do not kill civilians, if you take damage or you die, depending on the difficulty, how many checkpoints you go through, and really depending on how well you do will determine the amount of currency you're going to be rewarded with, and that currency can be used at a shop that's found between missions to buy a secondary weapon or ability. Now, regardless of what you choose, those secondary weapons and abilities can be the difference between success and failure, especially during moments where things get extra chaotic, and you need to be careful with what you choose because whatever you buy through and use during a run cannot be replenished. So you can't waste what you have, and also don't expect pickups because they don't exist. It's all part of the challenge of Neon Inferno, and it's something I really enjoyed about the game. You're pretty much judged based on your overall skill, and you can make it through without a secondary weapon. You don't need one to beat all the bosses, but they do really help, especially the chaser weapon, which pretty much just automatically targets enemies for you. It's really useful for that end stage where things just get crazy. Regardless, you just need to pay attention to what you're actually using and what you're buying, and trying to be as efficient as possible as you make your way through the different stages. That's going to do it for the gameplay. Let's move on and talk about the production values. The pixel art found here is great, the real highlight being the different environments you're going to fight through. These include packed nightclubs, dilapidated buildings, war-torn environments, and more. The visual aesthetic will remind you of Cyberpunk mixed with RoboCop, and I really think they nail it. Everything here is just so well done, and there are some areas with nice visual touches that were generally surprising. If I had to pick a favorite level, it was the nightclub. The entire level is great visually, and I love how it progresses when you finally get backstage and you have to kind of shoot through the fog and mist and the smoke and stuff like that. That is a really cool thing to see in the game. While I believe that the visuals as a whole are solid, I believe the real highlight that comes from the production values was the music. I'm happy to report that the music in this game is fantastic. Every area you go to has its own track, and does an excellent job of getting you hyped as you progress through the level. Boss fights have their own dedicated tracks as well, and these can actually help you enter a flow state, and all the tracks for the bosses fit their fight, which is a big plus. Shout out to the composer, they did an excellent job. So I've spoken pretty glowingly about Neon Inferno because I think it's a really good game overall. I didn't really experience any issues. I don't really have many gripes. It's meant to be a challenging game, and I think for fans of the genre, it's an easy recommendation. For everyone else though, I'm probably going to say pass, and the reason why I'm saying that is because it's a short game. You will beat this on medium and easy in under an hour and a half. It may take you some time to get through it on hard, and if you feel like you're up to the challenge, you can play it in arcade mode because that's pretty much just like you trying to beat it without dying. Sure. But I think that this is a game that's ultimately going to provide more value for fans of the genre and challenge runners than it is to the average gamer. So I think that needs to be said because I like to be transparent with whoever watches my videos, especially when I'm like highlighting an indie gem. I think that this is a gem, by the way. And I really think that this game is really good. It will surprise you. But I really feel like the fact that it just only has 2 modes is going to hold it back from reaching an audience, because this should have something else to offer the player. Like a boss rush mode, maybe a randomizer, something. It just doesn't have that, unfortunately. So while I am a fan of Neon Inferno, and this is a game that I desperately want to recommend to others because the game is just so much fun to play through, I'm not going to do that, and I'm going to leave it up to you, because if you're a fan of the genre, you loved Contra Operation Galuga, you wanted more, here you go. Neon Inferno is going to be right up your alley. I think Zenovia Interactive did an excellent job with this game, and I want to see more of it. But if you are of the casual audience, if you are someone who's interested in this genre, there are probably options out there that are going to give you more value. Because, once again, it's just story mode and arcade, and that is it. Which is a shame, because I think that the developers had some wiggle room to offer more stuff for you, and I think it would have been really beneficial for them. But I totally understand if they could only come up with a story mode and an arcade mode. That's completely fine. It's just, I really wish this game had more to it, because it would be an easy recommendation otherwise. But let me know what you think in the comments, because that's going to do it for this video. If you happen to like the content, please consider like, sharing, and subscribing. I am Ken from Pixelated Thoughts, and I'll talk to you next time.